Little Old Engines. Written and told by Kiefer Adams. "Come now, Sir Handel," said Duke one morning. "There was no need for that." "But it's true," Sir Handel huffed indignantly. "They're not coaches, they're trucks with seats." Sir Handel had been complaining all morning about the new coaches on the Skarloey Railway, known as Ada, Jane and Mabel. They had been given especially to Rheneas and Skarloey as an early birthday present, as their 100th birthday was not far away. 2 days to be precise. "You're just upset because we haven't got Gertrude and Millicent here," said Peter Sam. "They were proper coaches," snorted Sir Handel. "They had lovely bogey wheels and glided along the line." "Well, it's a shame they're not here, the poor dears," said Duke. "You'll never stop complaining, will you?" grunted Skarloey. "Don't mind him," said Peter Sam. "He's just used to things his way." "No, I'm not," snorted Sir Handel, and he puffed crossly away. "Typical," said Rusty. "Don't mind him," said Skarloey. "It'll take more than a cross patch to ruin mine and Rheneas's birthday." The next morning, Skarloey decided to take it upon himself to show Ada, Jane and Mabel around the hills. "This is lovely," said Mabel as they rolled along. "Yes, quite," said Jane. "Skarloey, are you really going to be 100 years old?" "I certainly am," replied Skarloey. "You must have seen some amazing changes to the railway in that time," said Ada. "Oh, yes, I certainly have," replied Skarloey. "Oh, the stories I could tell you all." "Do you think we'll feel welcome here?" Mabel asked. "I think so," said Skarloey. "Don't be upset with Sir Handel, though. He's just overworked." "That is not what I'd call it," said Ada. "Too puffed up in the smoke box, if you ask me," said Jane. Skarloey couldn't help but chuckle. He was rather fond of these coaches, and was glad that they now belonged to him and Rheneas alone. Once he had shown them around the hills, he took them back to the carriage sheds, where Cora, the guard's van often used for rescue trains, made them feel welcome. After that, Skarloey returned silently to the shed. Later that day, Skarloey was talking to some of the trucks that were in the yard. They were telling him how well Peter Sam had been with them, but some of them had felt rather ashamed and sorry after his accident at the incline. As Skarloey chatted away, Thomas arrived with some vans. "Hello, Skarloey," he whistled. "Many happy returns for tomorrow." "Why, thank you, young'un," said Skarloey. "I don't feel 100, and you certainly don't look it," chuckled Thomas. "I met Rheneas at Crovan's Gate yesterday. Is it true you've got a twin in, Wales, is it?" "Yes, I do, actually," replied Skarloey. "His name is Taratlin. He, myself, Rheneas and his twin, Dulgoch, will build together in the same workshop." But of course, we were all cabless back then. Thomas was impressed. "What were the younger days like?" he asked. Skarloey closed his eyes and sighed. "It was a great time for us all," he said. "Rheneas and I arrived at different times on the railway. We were both bouncy and awkward. I was especially. Back then, I didn't have my cab or my trailing wheels. I was quite awkward, to be honest. I accidentally knocked the manager off my footplate while we were testing the line after it had opened." "Goodness!" exclaimed Thomas. "Shortly after I got my cab and extra wheels," Skarloey puffed, "Rheneas and I unfortunately had an argument. He said that my cab looked like a snail." Thomas chuckled. "But we made amends afterwards," said Skarloey. I got stuck in a mudslide and Rheneas came to my rescue. We've been firm friends since. More importantly, we've been firm brothers since. But there was an engine I also remember that brought me to the line, said Skarloey thoughtfully. I forgot what his name was, but he was a boxy sort of engine. Oh, the name escapes me for the moment. Just then, Thomas's driver politely interrupted. We've got to go now, Thomas, he said. We're helping in Edward's yard. Goodbye, Skarloey, Thomas puffed. Thanks for the stories. My pleasure, puffed Skarloey. As Thomas puffed away, Skarloey once again closed his eyes. He sensed that tomorrow was going to be a wonderful day indeed. Skarloey was right. He and Rheneas woke up the next morning to some sort of jazz band. The drivers and firemen had found some pots and tin cans and were bashing and crashing them around the yard. The little engines joined in with their whistles, well, Rusty with his horn, and even the trucks and coaches got to have a little sing-song too. Cora believed she had a beautiful voice, but no one dared to say anything. The celebrations were in full swing, but Skarloey still couldn't remember the name of the engine that had brought him to the railway all those years ago. Penny through your thoughts, old man? Asked Duncan cheekily. Excuse me, Skarloey chuckled. Respect your elders. Duncan was about to reply when a shrill whistle sounded. Skarloey froze. I know that whistle, he gasped. Well, go and join Rheneas in the shed, said Duncan. You'll get a better view of your present. Present? Said Skarloey. He thought that Ada, Jane and Mabel were his presents, as they were for Rheneas. But when he backed into the shed next to his brother, he was in for a big surprise indeed. Well, gentlemen, said a shrill voice, I knew you'd be bound for the railway, but I never thought you'd still be here after all this time. A small green boxy cabless saddle tank engine puffed next to the little engines. He wore the initials of the former Sodor and Mainland Railway, and he smiled at the two old engines. Now I remember, gasped Skarloey. Neil! My dear old friend! We haven't seen you since before we even gained our cabs, gasped Rheneas. Whatever are you doing here? Your controller allowed me to come and see you, Neil said grandly. I now work on a small heritage line on the mainland, but it's so great to see the pair of you. Dry rails and good running to both of you, and many happy returns. Rheneas and Skarloey were delighted. Duke, Peter Sam, Rusty, Duncan, and even Sir Handel gave a chorus of Happy Birthday to You, which of course was led by Neil. Neil stayed for the duration of the rest of the party, but the little engines were sorry when it was time for him to go home, but they understood. When the evening came to an end, Skarloey and Rheneas simmered happily in the shed. Talitlin, Dulgoch, Skarloey whispered to himself, wherever you are, dry rails and good running, many happy returns from your little old twins.